Okay, you're right. Welcome to our new topic of percentages. Okay, today we're going to look at two things. We've actually already been through these a little bit in number skills, but I didn't want to go on before we revised. They are looking at percentages as fractions and percentages as decimals. We're looking at ways in which we can convert between two of them. So here we go. Okay, percentages as fractions. So if you've got a question, write, I don't know, let's say 47% as a fraction. Okay, all you have to do in order to achieve that 47% as a fraction is simply, when we do a fraction, it means over 100. That's 47 over 100. Last thing you ask yourself, can that be simplified? No, it can't. And that's as simple as that, guys. It's really not too tricky. So that's writing 47% as a fraction. Say, for example, you got that same question. Write 20% as a fraction. Okay, I'm just going to simplify that. Write 20% of a fraction. If you gave the answer 20 over 100, you might not get all your marks if it's only a 1 mark question, because 20 over 100, while that is 20% as a fraction, it's not in its most simple form. You must make sure you simplify it. So 20 over 100 is 1/5. So always make sure we look at a question and say, is there a common factor between these two numbers? If there is, what is the highest common factor? And the highest common factor is 20. Okay? Really important to do that, guys. Making sure you're simplifying. Now I'm going to throw you a tricky one. Okay? And for some of you, you might want to write this down as an example. Say sometimes we get percentages and they already have fractions in them. So 1/4%. Usually when we're dealing with financial maths, you talk about share prices going up 1/4%. Now, if you got asked to write 1/4% as a fraction, that's tricky because the percentage is already a fraction. So how we do that is 1/4%. We write as 1, and then we multiply our denominator by 100. So my answer becomes 1 over 400. Okay? So when you get that as a fraction, always make sure you multiply your denominator by 100. If you multiply your denominator by 100, you will be able to work out your answer, okay? And again, I make sure on my last step I ask myself, is this the most simple form in which it comes? Which my answer is yes. Okay, one last try. Let's have a look at another example. Say, okay, no, actually we'll stick with the fractions. Say you got asked 15 and 1/3 of a percent. So something is 15 and 1/3 of a percent. Oh, that's what we call the mixed numeral. And Mr. Corsi told me the thing I do with mixed numerals is I change them into improper fractions before I can work with them. So 15 and 1/3. 15 multiplied by 3 is 45, plus 1 is 46 on 3. That's it as a improper fraction, okay? So my percentage is now 46 over 3 as a percent. And just as I did last time when I said if you're working with a fraction percentage, I always just go 46 over 3 and I multiply my denominator by 100. So where there's a fraction, I multiply my denominator by 100. Now I get a gigantic number when I do this. I end up getting a number of 46 on 300. Okay? And that's my answer. But is it? What do I always have to make sure? I always have to make sure that the final answer I come to is the most simple. Sorry, I've run out of room. I'm going to go over here. So, what I actually have to do is get this in its most simple form. And the answer is 46 on 300 is not. So, that becomes, we'll halve it, 23 on 150. Can I simplify it anymore? No, I can't. So my answer becomes 23 over 150. That is 15 and a third as a fraction. That is 15 and a third percent being the key word there, as a fraction. Now, the only other fraction that you need to learn how to be able to do is something like this, 36.4%. Can you write that as a fraction? It's really quite easy, guys. It's pretty straightforward. So I know that a fraction is usually, if it's a whole number, over 100. Okay, and 36.4 goes up there. But now I've got a decimal and it's a bit ugly. I can't really do much with it. And so what could I do to 36.4 and 100? If I do something to my numerator, I have to do it to my denominator if I start manipulating the numbers for no reason. So maybe I could try multiplying that by 10 and multiplying that guy by 10. And if I do that, it becomes 364 over 1,000. Excellent. I've got whole numbers on both my numerators and my denominators. But I have to make sure I simplify. And if I simplify this guy, get 91. Simplify this guy, so I'm using 4 as my highest common factor, and 250 on this guy. So my answer becomes 91 on 250. That's 36.4% as a fraction. Okay? It's pretty straightforward, guys. Just following those few particular rules. Now, percentages as decimals, that's a total other ball game, and it is so easy. So, if I get a question, write 81% as a decimal, that's simply 0.81. All I've done there is I've popped my decimal point in, my 8 goes there, my 1 goes there. That's 81%. I can do that with anything. I can do that with absolutely anything. So you give me a tricky one. You say, Mr. Corsi, I challenge you. You think you can do it with anything? Try it with this one, 16.2%. Challenge accepted. That just becomes 162. Any converting of decimals, of percentages into a decimal is really super easy, guys. It's really, really, really straightforward. Okay? So, that is percentages as fractions and percentages as decimals.